The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had never seen such fear. Thousands of alien beings filled the massive chamber, their voices creating a storm of panic that echoed through the crystal walls. Representatives from every corner of the galaxy sat in their designated areas, but today no one cared about protocol or proper seating. Ambassador Vex stood at the center podium, his blue skin pale with terror. The Rylon Federation had always been known for their calm nature, but today Vex's hand shook as he held the datapad containing the worst news the galaxy had heard in 1,000 years. "The Void Leviathan is awake," Vex announced, his voice barely steady. "Our deep space monitors detected its movement 3 days ago in the Omega Nebula. It has already consumed the Kepler-7 system completely." A wave of gasps and frightened whispers swept through the chamber. Every species in the galaxy knew the ancient stories. The Void Leviathan was not just a monster. It was death itself, wrapped in scales and fury. For 1,000 years it had slept in the dark corners of space, and the galaxy had grown comfortable in its silence. Admiral Koss of the Zentari Empire stood up from his seat. His people were warriors, known throughout the galaxy for their powerful warships and advanced weapons. But even Koss looked defeated as he spoke. "We sent our entire Fifth Fleet to investigate," Koss said, his voice heavy with loss. 30 of our best ships equipped with quantum torpedoes and plasma cannons. The beast destroyed them all in less than 10 minutes. The chamber erupted into chaos. If the mighty Zentari fleet could not even slow down the creature, what hope did anyone have? Commander Yex of the Alteran Republic raised her tentacled arm for attention. "Our scientists studied the attack recordings from your fleet," she said, to Koss. "The creature's hide absorbed every energy weapon you fired. Plasma, quantum energy, fusion beams, nothing worked. The beast seemed to grow stronger with each attack." Dr. Knoll from the Scientific Union stepped forward. He was a small, gray being with large eyes that held vast knowledge. "According to our analysis, the Void Leviathan feeds on stellar energy. Each star system it devours makes it bigger and more powerful. At its current size, it masses approximately 12 million tons and measures over 15 kilometers in length." The numbers brought a deadly silence to the chamber. 15 kilometers of pure destruction, moving through space like a living nightmare. President Kor of the Draconian Alliance slammed his clawed fist on his seat. "My people have faced dragons that could melt planets with their breath. We sent our proudest warriors and our strongest ships. The monster tore through our adamantium hulls like they were made of paper." More reports came in rapid succession. The peaceful Elvari had tried to communicate with the beast using their advanced telepathic abilities, only to have their minds burned by the creature's alien thoughts. The tech-savvy Greys had attempted to use their most sophisticated AI-controlled drone swarms, but the Leviathan had somehow turned the machines against their creators. Captain Rex of the Trade Federation stood up, his merchant's robes trembling. "It's not just our military ships," he said with horror. "The beast hunts everything. Our fastest cargo vessels, our smallest scout ships, nothing can outrun it. When it moves between systems, it travels faster than our best hyperdrives." The reality hit everyone at once. This was not just about military defeat. The Void Leviathan was hunting down everything that moved in space. No one was safe. Elder Moss of the Ancient Council spoke with a voice that carried the weight of centuries. "In the old records, there are stories of the last time this creature woke. It devoured 47 star systems before our ancestors managed to put it back to sleep. But those ancient weapons are lost to us now. We don't know how they did it." "Ambassador," Tor of the Crystal Beings projected holographic images above the center of the chamber. The images showed the aftermath of the Leviathan's attacks, empty space where star systems used to be, floating debris where planets once orbited their suns. "Look at this data," Tor said, his crystalline voice ringing with despair. "The creature is not random in its attacks. It's moving in a pattern, heading toward the core systems where our largest populations live. At its current speed, it will reach the Centauri hub in 6 days." The Centauri hub was home to over 50 billion beings from dozens of different species. It was the heart of galactic civilization, where trade, diplomacy, and culture all came together. The thought of losing it sent waves of terror through every representative. General Hark of the warrior clans stood up, his battle-scarred face grim. "We propose a united attack. Every species contributes their strongest ships. We hit the beast with everything we have, all at once." "With what weapons?" Admiral Koss shot back. "We've already proven that energy weapons only make it stronger. Our matter disruptors can't penetrate its hide. Even our singularity bombs barely left marks on its surface." Dr. Knoll nodded sadly. "The creature seems to have evolved over millions of years to be immune to the types of weapons we use. Its cellular structure actually converts energy attacks into food for its continued growth." The chamber fell into hopeless silence. For centuries, the various species had competed to create more advanced weapons, more sophisticated technology, more elegant solutions to warfare. Now all that advancement seemed useless against this ancient enemy. Counselor Vex looked around the chamber with desperate eyes. "Does anyone have any other suggestions? Any technology we haven't tried, any weapon that might work?" The silence stretched on. Representatives looked at each other, but no one had answers. The greatest minds in the galaxy were stumped by a problem that threatened to end civilization itself. Then, from the back corner of the chamber, a small voice spoke up. "What about the humans?" Everyone turned to look at the speaker. It was Representative Dale from Earth, one of the newest members of the Galactic Council. The humans had only joined the galactic community 50 years ago, and most species still considered them primitive newcomers. Laughter rippled through some sections of the chamber, but it was nervous laughter, the kind that comes from desperation, rather than humor. "The humans?" Admiral Koss asked with surprise. "Their ships still use chemical rockets and metal projectiles. They barely have faster-than-light travel. Their weapons are thousands of years behind ours," added Commander Yex. "They still fight with explosives and kinetic force." But Representative Dale didn't back down. "Maybe that's exactly what we need," he said quietly. "Everyone here has tried advanced energy weapons. Maybe it's time to try something the beast has never seen before." The chamber fell silent again. But this time, it was a different kind of silence. For the first time since the crisis began, someone had offered a new idea, no matter how unlikely it seemed. Ambassador Vex stared at the human representative for a long moment. "You really think your species could succeed where we have all failed?" Dale looked around at all the advanced alien civilizations, then nodded slowly. "We'd like to try." The emergency meeting room in the Pentagon was filled with Earth's top military leaders. President Kane sat at the head of the long table, studying the holographic display that showed the Void Leviathan's path of destruction. The alien data had arrived just 2 hours ago, and already the room buzzed with tense discussion. 15 kilometers long, muttered General Brooks, shaking his head. "That thing is bigger than Manhattan Island, and it eats star systems for breakfast." Secretary of Defense Miller leaned forward in her chair. "The aliens are desperate. Did you see how their council meeting ended? Species that have been fighting each other for centuries are now begging for help from anyone who will listen." "Admiral," Taylor pulled up the combat footage on his tablet. "Look at this Zentari attack. Their plasma cannons hit that monster dead center, and the damn thing just absorbed the energy like a sponge. 30 warships gone in 10 minutes. Captain Reed of..." The Earth Defense Force stood up and walked to the display. He was a veteran of the Mars colonial wars, known for thinking outside the box. "Maybe that's the problem right there," he said, pointing at the screen. "Every alien species we know uses energy weapons. Plasma, lasers, quantum torpedoes, all different forms of directed energy." "Your point, Captain?" President Kane asked. Reed touched the hologram, zooming in on the monster's scarred hide. "Look at the damage patterns. Every energy weapon leaves these smooth, healed marks. But see this section here?" He pointed to a small area that looked different. This rough, torn section came from debris impact when one of their ships exploded. Physical damage seems to stick. Dr. Morgan from the Weapons Research Division nodded thoughtfully. "The alien reports say the creature's biology converts energy into food. But kinetic force? Raw physical impact? That's different physics entirely." Are you suggesting we fight a space monster with bullets? General Brooks asked with disbelief. Not just bullets, Reed replied, his eyes lighting up with possibility. Railguns, mass drivers, good old-fashioned explosives, everything the aliens consider primitive. The room fell quiet as everyone considered this. Colonel Hayes, who had been silent until now, spoke up. Our ships are built completely different from theirs too. Alien vessels are all smooth curves and energy shields. Ours are flying tanks, thick armor, redundant systems, compartmentalized hulls. Because we never developed proper shield technology, Miller pointed out. Right, Hayes continued. But maybe that's an advantage here. When their shields fail, their ships are helpless. When our armor gets hit, we keep fighting. President Kane studied the faces around the table. Are you people seriously suggesting that Earth's primitive military could succeed where the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy have failed? Dr. Morgan pulled out her own tablet and started running calculations. Our heaviest battleships carry 16-inch railguns that can fire tungsten slugs at 12% light speed. The kinetic energy from just one shot would equal a small nuclear bomb. And unlike energy weapons, there's no way to absorb or deflect solid matter traveling that fast. Captain, Reed walked over to the wall display showing Earth's fleet. The EDF has been designing ships for war against other humans. We build them tough, ugly, and mean. Look at the Defiance-class battleships, 2 feet of composite armor, internal blast doors every 50 meters, emergency life support in every section. They look like flying fortresses compared to alien ships, agreed Admiral Taylor. When I visited the Zentari home fleet last year, their ships were beautiful. All flowing lines and crystal surfaces, but one good hit and they're done. General Brooks was warming up to the idea. Our point defense systems are basically machine guns in space. The aliens laughed at them during the technology exchange. But what if that monster launches some kind of attack swarm? Exactly, Reed said excitedly. Remember the Battle of Europa Station, when the Martian rebels used those fast attack drones? Our Gatling cannon systems shredded them. The aliens' precise energy weapons couldn't track that many small, fast targets. Doctor. Morgan looked up from her calculations. I'm reading about this creature's hunting pattern. It doesn't just destroy ships. It hunts them down one by one. That suggests intelligence, but also suggests it's used to fighting enemies that run away or fight at long range. And we don't do either of those things, Colonel Hayes said with a grim smile. Human military doctrine has always been close with the enemy and destroy them. President Kane leaned back in his chair. Let me get this straight. You want to send our fleet to fight a monster that just destroyed the most powerful military forces in the galaxy, and your plan is to get close and hit it with kinetic weapons. That's exactly what we're suggesting, sir, Reed replied. Look, we know our technology isn't as advanced as theirs, but it's different. This creature has probably been awake for millions of years throughout galactic history. It's evolved to counter energy weapons, long-range combat, and elegant alien tactics. But it's never fought humans. Admiral Taylor brought up the fleet roster. We have 47 heavy warships currently operational. The aliens sent 30 ships and got wiped out. Are we talking about a suicide mission here? Maybe, Reed admitted. But consider this. Those 30 alien ships probably never got closer than 1,000 kilometers to the target. They fired their weapons from maximum range and tried to retreat when they failed. That's textbook alien military thinking. And textbook human military thinking? The president asked. Get in close, hit hard, and keep hitting until the enemy is dead, General Brooks answered. Even if it kills us. Dr. Morgan stood up and activated the room's main display. I've been working on something that might help. Project Harpoon, nuclear-tipped. Penetrator rounds designed to punch through heavy armor before detonating inside the target. The display showed technical drawings of massive, barbed projectiles. We originally designed these for bunker busting on fortified worlds, but against a biological target this size, you want to shoot nuclear harpoons at it, Miller said slowly. Aliens would never think of such a crude approach, Morgan replied. Their weapons are all about precision and efficiency. Ours are about making the biggest explosion possible. Captain Reed walked back to the hologram of the monster. There's something else. Look at how it moves. It's graceful, almost elegant. That suggests it's used to fighting in open space where maneuverability matters. But our ships are built for close-quarters combat in asteroid fields and around planets. You think we can outmaneuver it? President Kane asked. I think we can get close enough that maneuverability doesn't matter. When you're ramming distance, it doesn't matter how elegant you are. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the implications. Finally, General Brooks spoke up. So our plan is to volunteer for what every alien in the galaxy considers a suicide mission. Get closer to this monster than anyone else has dared and try to kill it with weapons they consider obsolete. That's the plan, Reed confirmed. President Kane looked around the table one more time. And you all think this could work? Sir, Admiral Taylor said quietly. It's the only plan anyone has that hasn't already been tried and failed. The president stood up slowly. Then God help us all. Captain Reed, prepare the fleet. We're going monster hunting. As the meeting broke up, Dr. Morgan caught Reed's arm. You really think we can do this? Reed looked at the hologram of the Void Leviathan one more time. Doc, we're either about to save the galaxy, or we're about to show them how humans die. Either way, it's going to be one hell of a fight. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, and Admiral Stone felt his breath catch in his throat. Where 3 planets should have been orbiting the system's star, there was nothing but empty space and floating debris. The Void Leviathan had eaten everything. Jesus Christ, whispered Captain Blake from the destroyer Vengeance. His voice carried over the fleet communication channel, speaking what everyone was thinking. Admiral Stone stood on the bridge of the flagship Defiance, watching the scanner readings with growing unease. Sensors, what do you have? Sir, we're detecting massive energy readings from behind the gas giant, reported Lieutenant Ford. Whatever's back there is putting out more power than our entire fleet combined. All ships, battle stations, Stone commanded. Remember the plan, stay close, hit hard, and don't let that thing get away from us. The 47 ships of Earth's fleet moved into attack formation. Unlike the graceful alien vessels with their smooth curves and shimmering hulls, the human ships looked like what they were. Instruments of war. Thick armor plating covered every surface. Weapon ports bristled from their hulls like the spines of angry sea creatures. Captain Reed aboard the heavy cruiser hammer-checked his weapon status. Railguns loaded with tungsten penetrators, nuclear torpedoes armed and ready, point defense systems online. This is it, people, Admiral Stone announced to the fleet. Every alien navy in the galaxy has failed. Today we find out what humans can do. The gas giant rotated slowly in space and something began to emerge from behind it. At first it looked like a dark shadow against the planet's swirling clouds. Then the shadow kept growing and growing until the human crews realized they were looking at something that defied their understanding of life itself. The Void Leviathan was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Its body stretched for 15 kilometers, covered in scales that shifted color like oil on water. Massive tentacles, each thicker than a battleship, trailed behind it as it moved through space with impossible grace. Along its sides, bioluminescent patches pulsed with energy absorbed from the system's dying star. My God, breathed Captain West from the frigate Thunder. How do you kill something like that? The monster's head was the size of a small city, with eyes like burning stars that seemed to look directly at each human ship. When it opened its mouth, they could see rows of teeth that looked like crystallized space itself, each one sharp enough to cut through reality. All ships, open fire, Admiral Stone commanded. The human fleet erupted in violence. Railguns fired, tungsten slugs at incredible speeds, creating lines of light that crossed the space between the ships and the monster in seconds. Nuclear torpedoes streaked through the void, leaving trails of fire. Traditional kinetic cannons hammered away with explosive shells. The Void Leviathan reacted with surprise. For the first time in eons, something had actually hurt it. Several of the railgun slugs punched completely through its hide, leaving ragged holes that leaked strange glowing fluid into space. The monster's roar could not be heard in the vacuum of space, but every human felt it in their bones. A vibration that seemed to shake the very fabric of reality. The creature's eyes focused on the human fleet with new interest. These strange, ugly ships were different from the others it had hunted. "Direct hit on the port flank," reported Lieutenant Ross from the Defiance. Railgun penetrated approximately 50 meters into the target, but the Leviathan was already moving, faster than something that large should be able to move. Its tentacles whipped through space, and one of them slammed into the destroyer Lightning. The ship's armor crumpled like paper, but the crew inside kept fighting. "Hull breach on decks 3 through 7, Captain Mills reported from the Lightning. "But our main guns are still operational." This was the difference between human and alien ships. An alien vessel would have been destroyed instantly by such damage. The human ship, built like a fortress, continued to fight even with massive structural damage. The Leviathan launched its own attack, beams of pure energy that would have vaporized any alien ship. But the human vessels had been built to fight. Other humans who also used energy weapons. Thick armor plating absorbed much of the blast, and redundant systems kept the ships operational. "Energy attack absorbed by primary armor," reported Captain Blake. "Some surface damage, but all systems green." The monster seemed confused. Its energy attacks, which had destroyed entire alien fleets, were barely slowing down these primitive vessels. It tried a different approach, sending waves of smaller energy bursts at the human ships. This was where Earth's primitive point defense systems proved their worth. Gatling cannons designed to shoot down missiles and attack craft filled space with streams of bullets. The energy bursts meant to overwhelm sophisticated alien defense systems were shredded by simple machine gun fire. "Point defense is holding," shouted Commander Davis from the cruiser Fury. "Whatever this thing is throwing at us, our guns are eating it up." Captain Reed saw his chance. The hammer was closest to the monster's wounded flank, where the railgun shots had torn through its hide. "All ships concentrate fire on the damaged area. Let's see how deep we can go." The human fleet focused their fire on the wounds they had already created. More railgun slugs punched through the holes, widening them. Nuclear torpedoes detonated inside the creature's body, causing massive internal damage. The void Leviathan writhed in pain and rage. It had never experienced anything like this. These strange ships refused to keep their distance. They kept getting closer, hitting harder, causing more damage with each attack. "It's bleeding," Lieutenant Ford announced with excitement. "That glowing stuff pouring out. It has to be some kind of blood." The monster tried to grab the nearest human ship with one of its massive tentacles. The cruiser Iron Fist disappeared in the creature's grip. But even as it was being crushed, the ship's crew kept firing their weapons point blank into the tentacle. "This is Captain Smith. We're going down, but we're taking a piece of this thing. With us!" The Iron Fist exploded, its nuclear reactors overloading in a brilliant flash. The explosion tore off the end of the Leviathan's tentacle, sending the massive appendage spinning away into space. "First blood to humanity," Admiral Stone announced. "All ships press the attack." But the Leviathan was learning. It began to focus, its attacks on one ship at a time, trying to overwhelm their defenses through sheer concentration of force. The destroyer's sword took the full force of the monster's energy beam and simply vanished in a flash of light. "We're losing ships," Captain Reed reported grimly. "But we're hurting it more than anyone else has." The battle raged on, with human ships darting in and out like angry hornets attacking a giant. Their weapons, crude by alien standards, were proving devastatingly effective against the monster's biology. Each kinetic hit caused real damage that the creature couldn't simply absorb or heal. Captain West made a desperate attack run in the frigate Thunder, getting so close to the monster that his ship was actually scraping against its hide. His point-blank, railgun shots punched deep into the creature's body, causing massive internal damage. "This is how you fight a monster," West shouted over the comm as his ship pulled away. "You get close enough to smell its breath." The Void Leviathan, ancient terror of the galaxy, found itself in a kind of fight it had never experienced. These humans didn't run. They didn't try to fight from a safe distance. They came straight at it, trading damage for damage, and their crude weapons were actually working. For the first time in millions of years, the Void Leviathan felt something it had almost forgotten: fear. The battle had been raging for 2 hours, and space around the Void Leviathan was filled with wreckage from both sides. 7 human ships had been destroyed, but the monster was bleeding from dozens of wounds. Its beautiful scales were cracked and torn, leaking that strange glowing fluid into the void. Admiral Stone studied the tactical display on his command screen. The creature was adapting to their attacks, learning to dodge the railgun shots and counter their torpedo runs. But it still seemed confused by human tactics. "Captain Reed, report," Stone ordered through the communication system. "Sir, we've confirmed that kinetic weapons work," Reed replied from the hammer. "But this thing is tough. We're going to need something bigger to finish it." Commander West had an idea that would have horrified any alien military leader. His frigate Thunder had taken heavy damage, and his engines were failing. Instead of retreating for repairs, he was planning something that went against every rule of space combat. "Admiral, request permission for a kamikaze run," West said calmly. The communication channel went silent. Even among humans, using your ship as a guided missile was considered a last resort. "Explain your plan, Commander," Stone replied. West's voice was steady despite the chaos around him. "My ship is dying anyway, but I can load her up with every nuclear warhead we have and ram it straight into that thing's biggest wound. If I can get the nukes to detonate inside its body." "That's suicide, West," Captain Blake interrupted from the Vengeance. "Maybe," West admitted, "but I've got an escape pod, and if this works, it might give us the opening we need." Admiral Stone considered the proposal. In any alien military, such a tactic would be unthinkable, but humans had always been willing to sacrifice themselves for victory. "Permission granted," Stone decided. "All ships, cover Commander West's approach." What happened next amazed even the human crews. West's damaged frigate, loaded with every nuclear weapon it could carry, began its final attack run. The other ships provided covering fire, their railguns and cannons keeping the monster's attention divided. The Void Leviathan saw the small ship approaching and tried to swat it away with one of its tentacles, but West was flying his ship like a fighter pilot, dodging and weaving between the massive appendages. "Almost there," West reported, getting ready to eject. The frigate slammed into the creature's largest wound at full speed. West's escape pod shot out just seconds before impact. The ship buried itself deep inside the monster's body, and then every nuclear warhead aboard detonated simultaneously. The explosion lit up the entire star system. The Void Leviathan convulsed in agony as the nuclear fire burned through its internal organs. For the first time since the battle began, the creature let out a sound that the humans could actually hear, a psychic scream that made their ears ring. "Direct hit," Lieutenant Ford shouted from the Defiance. "Massive internal damage to the target." But the explosion had done something else. The monster's body was now glowing brighter, the bioluminescent patches along its sides pulsing with increased energy. Captain Reed realized what was happening. "It's absorbing the nuclear energy," he warned. "The explosion is making it stronger." This was the creature's ancient defense mechanism. It could absorb energy-based attacks and convert them into power for its own use. But the physical damage from the explosion, the torn flesh, the ruptured organs that remained, Admiral Stone saw the opportunity. "All ships focus on the physical damage. Use kinetic weapons only, no energy weapons, no explosives that create energy bursts." The human fleet adapted quickly. Railguns fired solid tungsten slugs into the creature's wounds. Kinetic cannons launched heavy metal projectiles. Some ships even fired old-fashioned bullets from their point defense systems, anything that would cause physical trauma without releasing energy. Captain Smith in the heavy cruiser Sledgehammer came up with the next crazy idea. His ship carried mining equipment for asteroid operations, massive drills designed to bore through solid rock. "Admiral, requesting permission to try something stupid," Smith announced. "Go ahead, Captain," Stone replied. By now, he had learned to trust his officer's unconventional thinking. Smith maneuvered his ship close to one of the monster's tentacles and activated the mining drill. The massive boring tool, designed to cut through asteroids, began grinding into the Leviathan's flesh. The creature tried to shake the ship off, but Smith held on like a bulldog. "It's working," Smith reported excitedly. "This drill is cutting through its hide like butter." Other captains began copying the tactic. Ships with mining equipment, construction tools, even emergency cutting torches began attacking the monster at close range. The Void Leviathan found itself being literally carved apart by industrial equipment. Lieutenant Ross, aboard the destroyer, Justice, made the next breakthrough. His ship carried a new experimental weapon, a magnetic harpoon gun designed for capturing space pirates. "Sir, what if we use the harpoons to hold it still?" Ross suggested. "If we can anchor this thing in place, our big guns can target its weak spots." "Do it," Admiral Stone ordered. The Justice fired its magnetic harpoons into the creature's flesh. The barbed projectiles buried deep and held fast. Other ships began copying the tactic, using every kind of anchor, cable, and magnetic clamp they could find. Soon the Void Leviathan was partially trapped by dozens of cables and harpoons. The monster thrashed wildly, trying to break free, but the human ships held on with grim determination. "Now we've got it where we want it," Captain Blake announced from the Vengeance. "Close range, can't run away, and we know where to hit it." The human fleet moved into point-blank range, so close that some ships were actually touching the monster's hide. At this distance, their weapons couldn't miss. Railgun slugs punched through the creature's armor and exploded inside its body. Kinetic cannons fired continuously, turning sections of the monster into hamburger. But the Leviathan wasn't finished. In its rage and pain, it began to glow brighter than ever before. The absorbed energy from earlier attacks was building up to a massive release. "Energy buildup detected," Lieutenant Ford warned. "This thing is about to blow." The creature was preparing to release all its stored energy in one devastating attack, enough power to destroy the entire human fleet in a single blast. Captain Reed saw the danger and made a desperate decision. "All ships with nuclear torpedoes, fire everything into its mouth. If it's building up energy, let's give it indigestion." 6 ships fired their remaining nuclear torpedoes directly into the monster's open mouth. The weapons disappeared down its throat and detonated inside its body. The creature's energy buildup became unstable, causing internal explosions that tore it apart from within. "It's working," shouted Commander Davis from the Fury. "The thing is tearing itself apart." The Void Leviathan writhed in space, its own absorbed energy now working against it. The nuclear explosions inside its body were causing chain reactions, making its bioluminescent organs overload and explode. But even as it died, the monster had one last attack. With its remaining strength, it wrapped its tentacles around the nearest human ship, Admiral Stone's flagship, the Defiance. "Hull breach on all decks," reported Lieutenant Ford as the ship's armor began to buckle. "We're being crushed." Admiral Stone looked around his damaged bridge and made a command decision that would become legend. "All hands, abandon ship. Set the reactors to overload. If this thing wants to hug us, let's give it something to remember." The crew of the Defiance evacuated to escape pods as their ship's nuclear reactors began an uncontrolled meltdown. The Void Leviathan, still holding the ship in its death grip, was about to get a very unpleasant surprise. The Defiance exploded in a brilliant flash of nuclear fire while still trapped in the Void Leviathan's tentacles. The explosion tore through the monster's appendages and sent waves of destruction through its massive body. Admiral Stone and his crew watched from their escape pods as their ship died, taking a huge piece of the creature with it. "Admiral Stone to all ships," came his voice over the emergency channel. "I'm still alive, and this fight isn't over. Captain Reed, you have command of the fleet." The remaining 38 human ships regrouped around their floating admiral. The Void Leviathan was badly wounded now, missing 2 tentacles and bleeding from dozens of holes. But it was still alive, still dangerous, and still 15 kilometers of pure alien nightmare. Captain Reed aboard the Hammer studied the monster through his ship's sensors. "All ships, listen up. This thing is hurt bad, but it's not dead. We need to finish it before it recovers or runs away." The creature was indeed trying to escape. It began moving toward the edge of the star system, hoping to reach deep space where it could heal and plan its revenge. But the human ships pursued, it like angry hornets continuing their relentless attack. Captain Blake in the Vengeance noticed something important. Look at its movement pattern. Every time we hit that glowing spot near its head, the whole beast staggers. I think that might be its brain or heart. The glowing organ was partially visible through a massive wound the humans had torn in the creature's side. It pulsed with the same bioluminescent light as the rest of the monster, but brighter and more regular. That's our target, Reed decided. All heavy ships form up for a coordinated strike. We're going to punch right through to that organ. But the Leviathan sensed the danger. It coiled its remaining tentacles around its wounded side, protecting the vital organ. The humans would have to fight through its defenses to reach their target. Commander Davis aboard the cruiser Fury had a plan. Sir, what if we use ourselves as bait? Get in close, make it grab us, then the other ships can hit it while it's distracted. It was another suicidal tactic, but Reed was learning that sometimes crazy plans worked best against impossible enemies. Do it, Commander, but make sure you can break free when the shooting starts. The Fury flew straight at the monster's head, firing its weapons point-blank into the creature's eyes. The Leviathan, enraged by the attack, wrapped its tentacles around the small cruiser and began crushing it. Now, Reed shouted. The remaining heavy ships opened fire with everything they had. Railguns sent tungsten slugs screaming through space at incredible speed. The projectiles punched through the monster's tentacles and buried themselves deep in its body, seeking the glowing organ. Captain Smith in the Sledgehammer made a desperate attack run, flying his ship directly into one of the creature's wounds. His mining drill, still spinning from the earlier battle, carved through internal organs as he flew through the monster's body like a bullet. I'm inside this thing, Smith reported with amazement. I can see the target organ. It's huge. Smith fired his ship's entire ammunition supply into the organ at point-blank range. Hundreds of kinetic rounds tore through the creature's most vital system. The Void Leviathan convulsed as its central nervous system began to fail. But the monster had one final surprise. As it died, its body began to collapse in on itself, creating a gravitational anomaly that threatened to crush everything nearby. The creature was so massive that its death was creating a temporary black hole. All ships emergency burn, Reed commanded. Get away from that thing before the gravity well collapses. The human ships fired their engines at maximum power, racing against time and physics. Several ships were caught on the edge of the gravitational field and began to be pulled back toward the dying monster. Captain West, who had survived his earlier kamikaze run, made one last sacrifice. His rescue shuttle flew back toward the gravity well and used its small nuclear engine as a bomb, creating an explosion that disrupted the field just long enough for the other ships to escape. "West, you crazy bastard!" Reed shouted as he watched the shuttle disappear into the collapsing space around the monster. "Tell them how humans die." West's voice came over the radio just before his signal was lost forever. The Void Leviathan, ancient terror of the galaxy, finally succumbed to its wounds. Its massive body stopped moving, stopped glowing, stopped being the nightmare that had haunted civilizations for millions of years. The creature that had devoured star systems and destroyed the most advanced fleets in the galaxy was dead, killed by a species that still used gunpowder and metal bullets. The surviving human ships gathered in a loose formation, their hulls scarred and their crews exhausted. Of the 47 ships that had entered the battle, only 31 remained. But they had accomplished what no other species thought possible. "This is Captain Reed to all ships," came the tired but triumphant voice. "Mission accomplished. The Void Leviathan is dead." 3 days later, the human fleet limped into the Centauri hub to a reception unlike anything in galactic history. Every species in the Council had ships waiting to escort the battered Earth vessels to the station. Alien crews lined the windows of their ships, staring in amazement at the humans who had done the impossible. Admiral Stone, rescued from his escape pod, stood in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council. The same chamber that had been filled with panic and despair just days before was now packed with representatives cheering and applauding. Ambassador Vex of the Relon Federation stood at the podium with tears in his blue eyes. "The debt the galaxy owes to humanity cannot be measured," he announced. "Where we failed with our most advanced weapons, you succeeded with courage and determination. Elder Moss of the Ancient Council spoke with wonder in his ancient voice. In all our histories, in all our legends, no one has ever defeated the Void, Leviathan, in single combat. Your species has written a new chapter in galactic history. Admiral Stone stepped forward to address the council. His uniform was still stained with smoke and his face bore the marks of battle, but he stood proud and straight. Honored representatives, Stone began. We didn't win because our technology was better. We won because we were willing to do whatever it took to protect innocent lives. That's what humans do. We fight for those who can't fight for themselves. Captain Reed, standing beside his admiral, added his own thoughts. Our weapons weren't more advanced than yours. Our ships weren't, faster or stronger, but we had something that monster had never faced before, the refusal to give up no matter how bad things got. Ambassador Dale from Earth smiled as he watched his species being honored by the galaxy. We've learned that sometimes the most sophisticated solution isn't the best solution. Sometimes you need to get your hands dirty and fight like your life depends on it. The celebration continued for hours, but eventually the formal ceremonies ended and the real conversations began. Representatives from dozens of species approached the human delegation with new respect and new questions. Admiral Koss of the Zentari Empire, who had lost his entire fleet to the monster, shook Stone's hand with genuine admiration. Your people have taught us something important about warfare. We had become too dependent on our technology, too comfortable with fighting from a distance. Dr. Knoll from the Scientific Union was fascinated by the human approach. Your kinetic weapons, your close combat tactics, your willingness to sacrifice individual ships for the greater good. These concepts will revolutionize military thinking throughout the galaxy. As the humans prepared to return to Earth, they left behind more than just the corpse of an ancient monster. They had shown the galaxy that advancement wasn't always about having the newest technology or the most elegant solutions. Sometimes, the best way to solve an impossible problem was to get close enough to hit it with a very big stick. The voyage home was quiet, filled with thoughts of fallen comrades and the magnitude of what they had accomplished. The humans had saved the galaxy, not through superior technology, but through the simple human conviction that some fights are worth dying for. As Captain Reed looked out at the stars, he smiled. Somewhere out there, alien civilizations were redesigning their military doctrines, building tougher ships, and learning that sometimes the old ways were the best ways. Humanity had earned its place in the galaxy, not as the most advanced species, but as the one species that would never ever give up.